So I don't know about you, but this was an interesting week. I think I learned a lot of things about gymnastics and gymnasts that I didn't really know before today or earlier this week. I learned the term twisties. I learned how much life can be a challenge. And I learned and I saw Biles acting with tremendous grace, tremendous composure, and really teaching us about the gift and the necessity that we can give ourselves by engaging in self-care and really taking care of our mental health. I'm sure you've heard it before by just simply turning on the news, or maybe you were also equally surprised like me to find out that she had pulled herself out of the Olympics, or at least the team and then the individual. But what was really profound was when I really thought about it, and I started to ask the question, not just what it was, the twisties, a familiar feeling or quote among gymnasts as they lose control of their body in the air. And I learned about other gymnasts who were injured doing some of these stunts, I don't know how to say it, or I'm not quite sure what the best word for it, but really skills, and how it was hard for them sometimes to always be able to maintain physical control of their bodies, and that by losing control of their bodies, some of them actually suffered permanent injuries. But beyond that, one of the things that I learned was by asking and thinking about what happened to Simone. She was one of hundreds of gymnasts who were survivors of what Larry Nassar did to her. And we often don't think of those effects as lasting or so impactful. It's in the past, it was something that just happened. But she was one of the only ones for whom it still happened that she chose to be an advocate and a voice for. And this is one of those interesting moments when we think about what happened. Oftentimes we ask, well, why did this happen? Why did this happen to these women? Or why did this happen in general? And sometimes we may even want to think about blaming the victim or blaming the person for whom this happened to. And one of the things that I love about our Bible is that it has many different theologies, and you'll figure out why I'm talking about it in a second. One of those theologies that I just read, the Deuteronomistic theology, the one that comes from the book of Deuteronomy, the one that says, if you follow what I say, God speaking, I'm pretending I'm God, because I look God-like. You can easily mistake me for God any old day. But if you follow what I say, I'm going to bless you. And if you don't follow what I say, then I'm going to curse you. And you can almost hear that theology and see that theology and understand that there is some distinct positive value to it, but there's also toxicity there as well. Because it implies that if you're doing something wrong, then you get blamed for what happened to you. And I want to highlight that that's not the only theology in our Bible. That's not the only theology in our sacred text. We have the book of Job, which pretty much tells us that sometimes things just happen. We don't know why. The book of Lamentations, which is literally 5 litanies of suffering and pain. God's barely even mentioned, simply invited to wander in, according to Adele Berlin, a commentator on the book of Lamentations, to be a mourner with the Israelites who had just lost the first temple. Imagine that, inviting God in to be a mourner with you. In this case, for Simone, inviting God in to be a mourner with her. What a different theology, and what a different statement that can make. Thereby not taking the blame or putting the blame or assigning blame at all. Simply recognizing that there was a lot of pain that happened to not just her, but hundreds of women. And begs the question, have we really mourned and grieved that pain? Have we addressed it? I think, and she said this, one of the things that this whole process has made her realize is that she is more than her accomplishments and gymnastics, something that she tweeted out she never truly believed before. Her withdrawal has introduced others to other members of the gymnastics team whose presence were almost overshadowed by her larger-than-life presence. After all, this is a woman for whom 4 different moves or skills are named after, a woman who has won awards and championships and then more championships, that she makes it look so effortless. But then we see the human side of her. We see that it's not effortless. We see that it takes effort, and not a little bit, a lot. And we see that it's not about us judging or putting our expectations on to her. It really comes down to us asking questions. Why? What happened? What does it mean? And are we adequately doing everything we can to support our athletes, to protect especially our vulnerable young female athletes, or anybody for that matter, when we push them and put them up on pedestals and throw our expectations onto them? What she did for me, I will say very personally, was highlight the need to simply recognize different competing theologies in the Bible as having tremendous value for different people at different times. And may the courageous act that she had by continuing to be present for her teammates, with her teammates, and doing one of the hardest things of all, lifting them up and celebrating with them when I'm sure she was aching inside, is an inspiration for us all. At that moment, she was doing what the author of Lamentations suggested, being present, sitting with, and observing. What a gift. Not everybody, by the way, I think is capable. But she showed a path forward, a path of being a true leader, not just of sitting on expectations, not of swallowing the pain, not of blaming herself in silence, a path of leading, of speaking up, and of truly being her best and highest self, thereby turning the expectations from us, focus on her, but so that it's back focused on us, and recognizing and forcing us to ask the question, are we pushing too hard, and where should we be allowing those expectations to lead? Hopefully, by holding up a little bit of a mirror, we are able to see the gift of trying to be our highest self as a society, so that we ultimately support one another, so that we can all lift each other up and be our highest self. Can you hear Ratzon? May this be God's will.